Harvey was just never a big mover. It just kind of meandered along that central and upper coast of Texas. That's why we saw the staggering rainfall totals that we did see there. So as we move the forecast out to 72 hours and 96 hours, we're still looking at a Category 3 hurricane as it brushes by. So it looks like in the next 5 days. This is the European model. Once again, this is kind of the projection moving across the Lesser Antilles, across Puerto Rico, and into the Turks and Caicos and Bahamas. That's one model. We've got another one, and we've got spaghetti models that pretty much are in agreement moving towards the Bahamas and into the Turks and Caicos. But this is still 5 days out. 9 days beyond that, Aisha. Will it pose a threat to the United States? Right now, we're just not sure. 5 days out, looks like it's more in agreement.
Well, a new hurricane is gaining strength in the Atlantic Ocean. The U.S. National Hurricane Center said Hurricane Irma is now a Category 3 storm. Officials also warned that Irma is expected to be extremely dangerous for the next several days. So CBS News weather producer David Parkinson joins us now to talk about Irma. We don't even want to hear about another storm, but now we have Irma turning up. Tell me about the storm. What do I need to know?
So right now it is a storm in the middle of nowhere. Okay. So here's the satellite. Here's Hurricane Irma. It's 900 miles off the coast of Africa and 1,600 miles from the Antilles. So it's out over fishes. That's the good news, right? And so for the next 4 or 5 days, as it continues to intensify, it's going to stay over empty water. The question really becomes, once it gets closer to the Antilles, gets closer to Puerto Rico towards the later end of the week, that's when we start having a chance where it could impact land and really cause some damage.
Well, this is what I've learned from listening to people like you, that a storm like this over water, especially warm water, feeds its intensity. So it's a Category 3 now. It's not going to stay a Category 3.
No. So the official National Hurricane Center forecast takes it up to a Category 4. You can see in that graphic there of 140-mile-an-hour winds by Tuesday afternoon.
Yeah.
There are some models that are saying this could get to a Category 5. So it really comes down to this question of...
Category 5?
Yeah, Category 5.
Wow.
So this could just max out the scale. And then we talk about a whole new set of it creates its own atmosphere. It's a whole different situation. Yeah. But over the next couple of days, it went from a tropical storm to a Category 2 hurricane in a span of 6 hours. It almost doubled in wind speed, from 60-mile-an-hour winds to 115-mile-an-hour winds in a period of 24 hours. So this storm really is supercharged and ready to go.
Yeah, okay, she sounds scary, Irma, but she's only going to be really, really scary if she is headed towards land. So what are the models? What are the models showing?
Right, so if you, I set up this nice little graphic that we have there. So there are your possible options, right? So it could go into the Gulf of Mexico, it could make landfall on the East Coast, or it could recurve out to sea.
So worst case scenario, that bottom half of Florida and these Gulf states are going to get nervous.
Potentially. So the good news is that bottom option there, the one into the Gulf of Mexico, is, at least as model runs have come along, are less likely. So it has gone from a somewhat decent chance to less of a chance. That middle chance right now is still, unfortunately, the most likely. The problem is we don't know where it could hit in the U.S. It could go anywhere from pretty much Montauk to Miami at this point.
Wow.
So that's really unclear. The big question is going to be the setup, right? So we've got a ridge of high pressure, and that's over the Atlantic Ocean. It's a Bermuda High. And the question is, you see that giant gap there on that map there? That's the ridge of high pressure. How far west does that ridge hit, and how far down does it go? And that kind of will dictate the track past where the National Hurricane Center has it. Then you see that little blue thing in that upper left-hand corner of that graphic? That's a trough, and that's the dip in the jet stream. The timing of that and where that slides through will also impact of where it's going to send the storm. Okay. It could be too late. It could basically be a non-factor, and then the high takes over, and that's a really bad situation for land.
Okay, just remind us, when does hurricane season end?
Hurricane season ends on November 30th, and the peak of hurricane season is September 10th, which somewhat ironically is around the time where we'd be looking for landfall if it were to hit the United States.
Wow. David Parkinson, thank you so much.
No problem.
Rapid intensification, Category 2 hurricane. This will be a very dangerous storm and potentially could affect the Caribbean, the Lesser Antilles, Puerto Rico, Dominican Republic, potentially the East Coast, and the Gulf of Mexico or Florida. That's why we need to pay attention. So heading into Sunday, Monday, Category 4, there is the potential for this to be a Category 5 hurricane. Nothing in its way in terms of intensification. This is the Euro model, again, one of our reliable forecast models. This is Tuesday, Lesser Antilles, Puerto Rico, Dominican Republic, Cuba, and then perhaps moving into the Gulf of Mexico. Let's look at the GFS. All right, still a very powerful hurricane, moves towards the west, westward, 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 and then this one sort of takes a bit of a more northerly tour. Let's see if I can get my maps to work. There we go. That is a very dangerous hurricane right there, and it moves up towards the southeast. Okay, this is days ahead. This is next weekend. But what I can tell you is if you live along the East Coast, if you live in Florida, if you live along the Gulf Coast, you need to pay close attention to this storm, as well as the potential storm in the Gulf of Mexico. Also want to make mention, this is Tropical Storm Lydia, could potentially also be a hurricane and affect Cabo in the next couple of days. So busy, so crucial. I don't want to scare. I want people to be aware. We are into peak season. We could potentially have a very dangerous hurricane on our hands in 5 to 7 days that could potentially hit the East Coast, Florida, Gulf Coast, and then we are also watching the potential for a storm this weekend in the Gulf of Mexico that potentially could bring more rainfall to areas affected by Harvey. We will keep you posted. Listen to your local weather services. Listen to your local officials. Have a preparation plan. Know what to do if the
Category 2 Hurricane Irma. This one has intensified rapidly, and if you had a chance to tune in with us last night, this was showing signs that it was going to strengthen rather quickly because it was very well defined. There's nothing hindering its development. There's no wind shear out there. It has a lot of moisture to work with. So right now winds are sustained at 100 miles per hour. It's continuing to move west-northwest at about 10 miles per hour. But look very closely. You can see it's starting to develop a very well-defined eye, which is also indicative of intensification. Usually when you get a well-defined eye, not too much longer, it does become a major hurricane. And when we say major hurricane, it means Category 3 or higher. So it's well within the realm of possibilities that we could see this become a major Category 3 hurricane before the day is over, or even possibly as late as tomorrow morning. So it's definitely going to be worth watching over the coming days. Here's the latest track on this for you. As you can see, here we are Friday morning. Category 3 hurricane forecasted at about 120 miles per hour. But as I said, it could easily become a Category 3 even before that. Then it continues on through Saturday morning. Again, remains a major Category 3 hurricane. And then we take it out to about Tuesday. And by then, it could become a Category 4 hurricane with winds sustained at 130 miles per hour. But even by then, it's possible it may be a Category 5 hurricane. That's a little bit of a wait-and-see situation, but again, there's nothing hindering it from intensifying that rapidly. Now you can see this is actually the National Hurricane Center track here for you, and it's taking Irma towards the Lesser Antilles. Question is, where does it go from there? Does it kind of come up the eastern seaboard? Does it go into the Gulf of Mexico? That would be disastrous. I mean, this storm going anywhere near land is going to be disastrous. So I'm really hoping this one anomalous spaghetti model here is actually going to be correct, because it would keep it away from land and keeps it away from the Gulf, keeps it away from the eastern seaboard, keeps it away from Bermuda. So that would be ideal. But at